Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Mirko. Special day for me. There's a reason why I say so. We're having an amazing guest. So we're starting by brewing some coffee, an amazing Peruvian single filter coffee, and I'll be right back. Got some hot water boiling here. So yeah, today we're very lucky, very privileged to be talking to Joseph Brodsky. He's the founder and owner of 90 Plus Coffee, and I have a very amazing set of questions for him, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him. Looking forward for you guys to join. Looking forward to read your questions. It's just been very humbling to be able to talk to these amazing hospitality coffee people, and and you guys are taking along for the journey. So once I finish this coffee, we'll be joined by Joseph, and we're gonna have an amazing chat. So we'll let this sit for a few seconds, and then we can get started in a few minutes. So yeah. The format for people who are new to this is very simple. Joseph will join us probably from the 90 Plus Instagram handle. We're gonna go through some questions, and you feel free to ask any questions that you have about his products, about his coffee, about his story, about whatever you want to learn. Today's episode 26, I believe. So if you have missed out any previous episodes, we have other amazing guests, of course, that have joined us in the past few weeks. They're also available on our YouTube and our podcast platforms. So if you need help to find them, feel free to hit me up. My name is Mirko, and let's stir a little bit more. And we're nearly ready to brew this, plunge this, and get started. I'm very excited, and so you should be, because Joseph is just an incredible coffee human. So let's flip it, and let's go. So stick around for another 45 seconds to a minute, and then we get started with the real deal, the real interview. So if you've been enjoying this, I'm pleased. I've been receiving some lovely messages from you people telling me your thoughts about the show, your feedback, and sending me all the love. And I truly appreciate every single one of you watching, who watched, who rewatched, and the people who stay here for the entire interview. You guys are just the best. I see you, I know who you are, and you guys are just amazing. So without further ado, Coffee with Mirko, we can start it. So I'm gonna send an invite to Joseph right now. It's morning here in Melbourne, if you're wondering where I am. Let's see if he's in yet. Here he is. And hey Ben, hey Sinili, hey everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi Mirko, hello everyone. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the introduction, really appreciate it.
Joseph, hi, good to see you, man. How are you? How's your family? How's everyone over there?
We're doing really great. Quarantine in Coffee Paradise is not so bad.
Yeah. I mean, here I am in my one-bedroom apartment, which I'm super grateful for, but your one-bedroom apartment is slightly bigger.
Yeah, it's really in this place. Yeah, it's incredible.
Oh, it's breathtaking, even from what the little is see. And I'm glad you're drinking coffee. So we are both having a coffee, virtual, common, mutual, what they call them, the communal table. With all people watching who are going to tune in. Thank you for being here. Super grateful. We can, probably break the ice by asking the most common question that you probably answered a few times, which is, you can keep it short, but how did you actually get started into coffee?
I was reading a book by Kevin Knox, Coffee Basics, a long time ago, I guess around more than 20 years ago, 22 years ago, I read that book. And then I went into Whole Foods to buy the coffee from the author of that book, Kevin Knox. He was the coffee buyer for Allegro Coffee. And the reason I went to buy his coffee was because he wrote about Ethiopian coffees from Yergachefe and Harar that tasted like lemon and flowers and blueberry. And I thought, no way, not possible. And I got really lucky that that year he had these incredible Ethiopians in a supermarket that were like, they would have stood up well to some of the good coffees of today. And they blew my mind, and I was on a track for uncovering more of Ethiopian coffee flavor since then, and still to this day, even though we're in Panama.
Fantastic. Somewhere I read that you are the Elon Musk of coffee, but I also see a little bit of Indiana Jones. So, what's your ultimate coffee quest and venture?
I have to tell you, it's all related to the land. Like my surroundings here are. Every time I go up, I've been today. You know, we just got back to the farm about 4 days ago to the farms, and when I'm here, I spend at least half of every day in different parts of the land, both the coffee parts and the wild areas. So I try to mix that up. I'm really inspired by the wilderness and integrating wilderness with coffee. And today, like, found jaguar tracks and jaguar crap with fur in it, and that got me excited. Yeah, it's the surroundings are unreal, and it's just it's a pleasure and an honor to be creating coffee in paradise, really.
I'm glad I mentioned Indiana Jones and you came up with Jaguar tracks, because it really, you know, we got a fusion here. But obviously you, Joseph, and that's plenty. So basically, your passion bursted when you first obviously arrived and started exploring Ethiopia. Tell us more about those, you know, key years and how it got you to Panama then.
Well, I roasted only Yergachefe and Harar coffee in Denver, Colorado, as a co-founder of Novo Coffee for 5 years before I was invited to be a tasting judge for the first competition for the cooperatives in Ethiopia in 2005. And I thought I would arrive and find all the answers as to why 1 out of 100 coffees would taste really good and the other 99 had a lot of problems. And I didn't find the answers right away. So, you know, from the coffee industry in the capital city. So I ventured out to the farming areas, first with the group that was there to taste coffees together for a week. And then I decided to cancel my ticket home, and I stayed, and I went into the forests in Ethiopia and found, you know, hiked really deep for days and found the wildest coffee that I still have ever seen to this day. And an image of coffee growing wild in a rainforest canopy. And that's been my the vision that drives me still to this day, is I realize how beautiful coffee can integrate into forests, and here in Panama we just take that inspiration and try to integrate coffee that way, and work for, you know, low yields, highly supported and loved coffee, but we love all the natural members of the community equally along with the coffee.
Yeah, which is extremely important. I think, yeah, when we spoke in the previous times that we spoke with, like, sharing a conversation, you know, I think that relationship with nature is extremely important. And I believe that there's a question around that too. But yeah, no, 100% of the people, nature, you know, there's a little, you know, a very hint of envy, because, you know, when you talk about exploring, you know, it's fantastic. You know, I love what you're saying and getting to the forest, and but obviously, you know, a lot of people may put 90 plus on a pedestal, but my dad always taught me that nothing comes for free. So surely there were struggles and hustle behind your brand and mission.
Oh yeah, there's nothing comfortable about 90 plus to this day, and we like it that way because we always want to do more. And you know, first it was in Ethiopia. I moved to Ethiopia. I left the roasting business to my father and brother. I inspired to make coffees with my own hands out in different parts of the country, learn different languages for a few years in different uh, parts of the country. Siraminya, Caficho, Gedio, all these different greetings in different languages and peoples. Uh, Realized that with the love with your hands, you can make amazing products. Um, but in Panama, I really fell in love with the land, and when I was in Ethiopia, it was a struggle. I was basically residing out in the countryside and um, collaborating with, particularly with the Bagers family, on some very special sites. Was lucky to have great partners, but we were always a bit ahead of the curve as far as development products that the market maybe not quite have been ready for at the time. So we always had. I never had a big enough team. I never had a. Um, we've never sold all of our coffee, but every year we develop better and better and better stuff. And part of the reason we don't sell all of our coffee is we just don't accept anything that's not at an ultra level. It ends up being sold wherever if it doesn't meet the standards of 90 plus. When I first arrived in Panama, that was 2009 after some good starting years in Ethiopia, but a big struggle as they changed the. I don't know if you can hear me. It's starting to rain pretty hard around here.
No, no,
Okay.
it's beautiful. It's soothing, meditating. The sound. It's so good.
Great, great. So yeah, I arrived here in Panama first, also 2005, but I started to get a taste for the land, and I loved that Geisha was here, and it was really the Ethiopian nature of the Geisha variety that brought me here initially. Um, and I realized that here in Panama, I could not just have an impact on the processing of the coffee, which I was doing with all the smallholder growers in Ethiopia, but on massive tracts of land. So I didn't come here to just play with a small farm. I came here with only debt, and I had an opportunity for a giant farm that I saw. Hey, at this half of the farm that's pasture land, I could convert it to forest and put a coffee underneath it, and protect the rest of the forest and make this like a wildlife park that has coffee inside of it. And it was always, it took me 3 years just to close on the down payment with the bank. I had to keep having the seller extend and borrow from everywhere that I could to pay all the workers that were doing an amazing job with next to nothing here for the first few years. And really, to get this first farm, Geisha Estates, where I'm at now, about 200 hectares off the ground, was I didn't sleep for 3 years from stress, and because I wondered what I was getting myself into. There was no way how could this possibly end well, being so underwater. But every time I'd step back onto the land and I'd see the progress, it'd give me the strength to get up another day and go at it again and take another step. 2 back, 2 forward, 1 back, 3 forward, 1 back, whatever it was. And 10 years later, it happens. It's like we've produced some incredible coffees from this place, but we haven't nearly finished. We moved here to Panama really because I want to take the whole level of coffee farming much, much higher. And that means, mostly it means integrating with the community, the workers at a much higher level. So to do great work in a coffee bar, you need barista excellence and commitment and knowledge and passion for the product and a really great quality of life. So there's a lot to do when we have sometimes more than 200 people harvesting coffee in the peak season. We've got 60 people who live here permanently now. We just started a new project which takes we went from 200 hectares to a new project that's 400 and another one that's 400.
That's incredible.
Just in the last year. And my objective will be to raise the standard of living and the life experience level for all the people that collaborate with us locally, particularly the members of the Nove Buble indigenous tribe who work most of the agriculture in Panama. But they have their they're still connected to the land in a way that that there's so much to be learned from and lived with actually. So I draw daily. You know, for the last 11 years here, I've drawn so much from the connection with the indigenous people and a common vision for how to have this, you know, ancient ecology here and a respect for all the people who lived here before. Even, you know, the mythology aspects and the storytelling, but also take coffee farming and coffee taste development into the future. So you get people who are don't even know how to drive, yet they're incredible coffee technicians now, and so it's an incredible feeling to bring that community up.
Yeah, no, and look, we your passion is super. Your passion is absolutely, you know, we can almost feel it when you talk. There's a light in you, and um, here is a quote when we're talking about you developing only a certain standard of coffee because that's what your mission is. And here's actually a quote that I found about you. Joseph has developed a completely unique product. With my first taste, there was this floral note that I've never had before. I don't even have to drink the coffee to enjoy it. I could just smell the aromatics for hours. Do you know who said that?
Is that George?
Yeah, George Howell. So yeah, she's amazing. And another fun fact, when you were talking about 2005 and 10 years, transition. My first ever filter coffee that I ever drank was your famous like Shandy. And that cup started my career. So thank you. It's very special for me to have you on today.
You know, thank you so much for remembering that experience, and that's what all of us here, every last person, we enjoy so much the enjoyment of the work here. So when we see people enjoying the coffee, it's like it's the best reward. You know, and you know we love nature, we love our place, we love all the work that we do. But the most enjoyable aspect of it all is just to, in the most humble possible way, offer it to people to enjoy. It pains me sometimes how expensive some of our coffees are at the highest level, and I think people often misread that as, hey, 90 Plus is the most expensive coffee company in the world, or you know that, you know, for that price they must all be rich.
But I think in that regards, it was actually very interesting to hear. I had on the show Ibrahim, which I'm sure you know, just yesterday. No, I know you know him. And we ended up talking about obviously last year auction, and he just has such a beautiful answer behind that coffee, and justified almost by his anime presence, but also it's for him. It's like we all have a single passion. There's some people who spend $10,000 to see a football match because it's the final of the World Cup. There are some people who spend. A friend of mine, they have the most expensive dining table, but they hardly eat dinner together. But that's okay. We all have that, and I think that ultimately, you could never have a Ferrari at a price of a Fiat, but there's a good reason for it. So, quality is quality.
The $10,000 number was not the driver at all. It was looking at what the experience out in the market should be for a coffee that, let's say, is 0.001% of total production for 90 Plus, and it are the few kilograms of coffee from an experiment that is an innovation. So it's a prototype. Wow, this works, but I don't have any more of it, and I hope I can make it happen again. But the quantity is just so limited. So what happens in the world of wine when there's a very limited product? How much does it cost one to enjoy one glass of the wine? In coffee, a kilogram is not the right measure, right? It should be more related to how much does a taste experience cost. And for me, a taste experience is usually something like 30 37 to 60, 70 milliliters of coffee. You know, a nice brew divided by often 3 or 4, and people sit around and enjoy, you know, a portion of a brew. I shared this one with a few other people and took my
Little.
So to enjoy this was $250 divided by 4. And so a $250 brew of 10 grams divided by 4, and it gets you a yield of 37 milliliters each to enjoy. So for a coffee at that level for us, we felt that it should be offered in a range at market, you know, for that taste experience at a level which is at least comparable to that of the highest wines. But that doesn't even come close, right? The most expensive glass of wine or bottle will cost a lot more than $250. But if you do the math, then it gets to, you know, I can sell for 10,000, and Ibrahim or whoever else can take the risk and sell for 20. So it's really, if you look at the kilogram cost at retail, it's much higher. But per serving, we get so many servings per kilogram. It's often not. I don't think we appreciate that enough as coffee people or an industry yet. You know, a kilogram or a ton is just so much work. When I see a bag of coffee that's this big, I think, how is it possible to store that much work on one's shelf in their kitchen? You know, like, it's just, for me, every seed is so many steps.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So
I like what you said. I think, and you know what, I'm gonna jump because I knew this touches on a question that I had. You know, there is so much work, sweat, and tears behind that single cherry of coffee, like you just said. Shouldn't then coffee be treated and priced like wine that you mentioned? Really? Like,
well, if you think about 1 kilogram of coffee, and let's say very easily there are 50 significant sized portions in that cup. For me, it's more like 100, right? So I think in terms of, there are 100, I can offer this taste experience very easily for 100 people with 1 kilogram of coffee. So if the price to the market is $1 per taste experience from the farm, that's $100 per kilogram. Should, you know, it does the taste experience at the consumer level warrant $1 to go to this level of coffee production where so much is being invested in the ecological, the social, and kind of back to your earlier point, nothing's ever easy here. We never have enough cash, never. Like, we're not even close. Like, the things that we want to accomplish here to give people the quality of life that we want, to produce as little coffee in as much terrain and include nature. But amazingly enough, it's completely sustainable at $1 a cup at market. If the market will pay that to a farmer at this level, and a farmer at this level will invest that in their tastes, their humanity, and their ecology, then we can literally, you know, reforest a lot of the tropics. Like, it's very readily doable, but those economics have to change. So I always like to reverse engineer my price at farm by thinking about you know, what portion the grower should command of different levels at the bar or at the restaurant.
yeah, no, I like that. And you know, the reason for that question is because, you know, in Melbourne, where we are, obviously a different reality than Panama. I'm sure, you know, there's a coffee bars and there is a coffee culture, and you know, the food and the wine scenes are quite big, but you know, people are quite happily, you know, paying $16, $18, $20 for a single glass of wine or even more. And yet there is still, I think, groundwork for us in Australia and other parts of the world to start raising the bar price. And I had a chat with Sasha just about a few days back, and he was saying how they started putting up their prices up after the pandemic. He said that it's a good chance for them to do so, a good time too. And I think it's correct. And I used to trade wine 10 years ago before I got to Australia, and then that's why for me, I look at it and, you know, it's so similar. You know, there is a harvest, there is you know, the whole process behind that little grape and cherry, and you know, then you process in different ways. So, but yet I never seen a glass of wine going for $1 like you get at 7-Eleven, which there's $1 coffee. So that's always why I ask, especially people like yourself, and I appreciate your answer. And so what, for the people who will tune in later and rewatch this on YouTube, what would you say is unique about your farm and your work, as far as shade, regrowing, environment, and all of it? Because there's a lot, obviously. But
Well, it's the magnificence of the place, really. I mean, it's the level of it's how intact nature is, and then how amazingly healthy the coffee is that grows underneath the canopy of the forest. Those are things that I haven't seen at this level anywhere, and we push towards that. So that I was worried it wasn't going to work. I thought maybe it's way too wet in Panama. We'll have we'll have too many issues with roya or ojo de gallo or crop disease from the humidity. But everything is achievable. There's no problem that is not solvable, even in a natural way. I saw a good documentary recently called "Biggest Little Farm," I think it's called. But it's about a couple that land on a barren piece of land in California and have a dream to diversify it with a number of different food products, and they end up, but they insist on zero toxic inputs, and they find a natural remedy to every issue. They're tropical fruit trees that they have that for 2 years they can't figure out how to keep the snails from eating, from damaging nearly 100% of the fruit. They decide to put ducks in their pond, and the ducks eat the snails, and they don't have to use any pesticide. So and it took them a while, but so we always look also here for the natural remedy to control any problem the coffee has. And every part of our farm is different. We don't do broad, all these little microclimates around here. We get, just today we were looking at this insect that's chewing through 20% of the leaves in one lot. But I'm like, what, it's okay. Don't worry. We can afford to sacrifice a bit. And by the way, my one of the Camilo Sanchez, a great man who helps me work this farm, he touched one of the coffee trees to look at this insect, and all 20 on the plant fell to the ground. I was like, hey, how about we try walking down the rows of coffee trees and shaking every tree and seeing if they can find something else to eat on the ground, or at least hope that less than 100% climb back up. So we do stuff like that first, always, and we have a lot of natural remedies here, which I think is another signature element of the 90+ estates.
cool. Yeah, that's wonderful. And my father grows vegetables and fruits, and yeah, I can relate because he's always about natural, and he has always an explanation. And it's incredible how much yet incredible science is behind nature. Like. Then we call it science, but it's natural science. So I like that. And because we're reaching up the half mark point almost, which is crazy, but there's usually out of the box question that I like to pull out. How is actually family life in such a remote, pristine, untouched, part of the world?
Unbelievable. Every day at 4 o'clock, I come back from wherever I am, and I go to get together with my wife Chrissy and our son Blue, and we take a different beautiful walk inside either this property, or we go to Baru Estates, the new farm 30 minutes away from here. And it doesn't matter how many times I walk these areas, every time we find a new adventure, a new animal we haven't seen before, a new path. Yesterday we just found a new waterfall inside of our own, that's within 15 minutes of the house. I didn't know was there. And I've been, I've logged a lot of, hundreds of kilometers on this place, thousands, I'm sure, when we add it all up. And the discovery is endless. If one clears away all the nature and just puts monocrop coffee, there's nothing to discover. there's nothing. You've deleted, you know, a highly diversified landscape. But if one lets it go and grow, and at the same time, you know, the real forested areas, which we have a lot of those as well, which have zero coffee. Um, they're incredible adventures. I've found hot springs on this property. We found petroglyphs, so like rock carvings, 7 in an open field in the middle of the forest. 7 years after being here, for the first time, I found that. You know, I found hot springs 6 years after being here, and I hike all the time. So just today, I found a cemetery, like an indigenous cemetery from thousands of years ago on our new farm, hiking there. Every time there's not just a small discovery. I mean, they're significant. It really is like Indiana Jones. Like not like me personally being Indiana Jones, but the opportunity to have those adventures is walk out your door and you can have them any day.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think South and Central America, when it comes to you know, the jungle, the forest, because you know, I watched a documentary about a week ago, and you know, the tallest pyramid in the world is actually not in Egypt, but it's in oh, now I forget the name, but I'll write it later, but it's somewhere in South America. And I was like, what, really? But obviously, you know, it's all underneath the jungle, you know, so you need to know where to go. And it's like, you know, you gotta hike for 4 days to get to the top, as you know, to get there and then get to the top. And yeah, there's a lot, I'm sure, even there, because underneath, who knows what's on the ground too, you know, like that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think the thing that is going to be really exciting, it's really hard to encapsulate the experience of, you know, how moved one is from being here and tasting the coffee. But we really, in addition to upgrading everything that the community and all of our infrastructure and how we work with coffee, the trail network, all the experiences here that we can share, we really want to take the experience for the invitee, the guest that comes here to learn more about coffee from seed to cup. Here at 90 Plus, we really want to take the level of a visitor experience up to probably beyond where they have in wine, because in the wine world, it's not, you can't do the Indiana Jones thing at the same time. So no. Here you can do everything at that same quality as the, you know, the hospitality that you do in wine, but here you get to adventure to a much greater level.
And to go deeper on that, because that was actually my next question, was to fully understand to fully understand culture. People usually go and travel, and you know, even then, you know, you can't really fully understand it. So how could we fully understand 90 Plus? And I think you just said it. So you're planning to make, in terms of a little bit more of a experience and a destination for people to get deeper connected to your product.
Yes, and also social, you know, social media wise, and you know, from our communications platform, we moved to Panama almost about 2.5 years ago now, and we really adjusted our model and our focus to taking this coffee farming to a different level of experience. But now we're transitioning kind of back towards reaching out to the market again. But this time we're supported with, you know, incredible master planning for all the different types of experiences we're going to offer here in the 90 Plus estates. But we're going to try to let people live those with some great media experience out in the market, and have people, you know, as readily as possible have the taste a bit more accessible and the experience a little bit more tangible from afar, so that people dream. You know, our goal is to have people dream to come visit us, and we're really excited to welcome everyone that comes with open arms and share the experiences that we get to enjoy every day.
That's fantastic. And I'll excuse myself. I haven't said hi to anyone, but I really want to say hi to Ken. Hey, Ken, that's good. Ken was one of my first coffee mentors, and the very first filter coffee that I've ever drank. And it was your licello was actually brewed by Ken. So I'm glad to see him here, and I'm sure you met Ken a few times. I've seen pictures of you. So.
Ken, great to see you. I've been to your place. One of the and I know that you've always really embraced what we do for a long time, and I really appreciate that. And thank you and your customers for enjoying the work that we do. Really appreciate it.
Now, yeah, thanks, Scan. Now, a little bit interesting question that I really need to understand for myself and others. How important are auctions and competition to push more producers to lift up their game and the experimenting and the processing?
I think it's a wonderful platform. I think it's done, like the Best of Panama, for example. Incredible platform, incredible group of producers, mostly in Boquete, who have, raised the level of coffee work in Panama for generations. And more recently, really adapted to the evolution of specialty coffee, and have become, the uh, you know the, the craziest, most forward-thinking group of renegade coffee producers in the smallest area of the world. I think there's the concentration of great minds in Panama is really, really amazing. And I think a lot of that happens here, kind of rallying around, and still does to a large extent, the Best of Panama competition. So it's been an incredible platform to showcase the work of the incredible producers of Panama for a long time. We've I took a different approach for most of the time. We had one auction that we held. I think it was 2017, but uh, it, it I didn't really decide to do auction or not to do. I just decided to produce our coffee and then figure out how to connect it to people. And it was just never natural. No one ever said, "Hey, you should really do." Or I thought about it a bit myself, in terms of whether I should do it more. But I really like the one-to-one engagement with customers as well. And I think we've always wanted to do a much better job taking care of every single person who appreciates our coffee more. And I think that's our current objective has been, build up the bandwidth that we really need to give much more love to the people who enjoy our product in the market. And for us, that's the focus. Raise the level of quality across the board, taste, humanity, ecology, in our farming projects, and then really give a lot more love to the people who really support everything that we do out in the market. Yeah.
It falls perfectly because Golden Cloud Coffee just wrote a pretty funny comment. Delicious coffee, afraid to make a cup the right way, I'm assuming. So yeah, that's pretty funny. Now, I got a few questions, but I'm jumping through a big one because it might take a little bit longer. With the pandemic, especially in the Western country, lots of us have slowed down, which is a good thing. And as long as we got health and welfare and obviously basic needs and essentials, it's a good chance to really understand the impact that we have on Mother Earth, the impact that we have on our other people's lives, and
Yes.
a self-discovery journey. But this to go towards climate change topic, everybody's like, oh yeah, fantastic, the pandemic, less cars, but little they know that there's still 77 billion land animal farmed who produce more methane than all aviation and cars in the world, or in the USA at least. And couple of months of break is not going to be enough. Let's be real. And we don't want to make it political here, of course, but can you explain what is becoming more and more challenging for yourself and other coffee producers, and how much really at origin you can see the impact a little bit of climate change, or if you don't, that obviously different farms, different experience?
For us, we're relatively buffered from climate change because of the quantity of canopy that we have. So I think, one great way that we as coffee producers can combat climate change, and the market can support us to do that, is by really rewarding growers for having more shade in their farms. This will be great for the global warming topic, and also for coffee survival, and Certainly, the weather patterns have changed dramatically. Even in Panama, in the last 5 or 10 years, we see extremely wet years, extremely dry years, strange times for seasonal transitions and things like that. But with a relatively protected coffee plant and an entire system, really the forest system, relatively protected, it buffers itself much more readily than stripped land. So there's a lot of stripped land around here as well, that can readily be repopulated. So we really, we hope to give away all of our formulas for that to everyone who will adapt. As far like to collaborate with other producers that way, I really do dream of bringing a lot more producers from all over the world to demonstrate what can be done from a shade and a sustainable cultivation of coffee. Of course, one has to know how to command a price that pays for it, but it certainly does not have to be $10,000 a kilogram, and that's not that. Our average price from 90 plus Geisha estates is a tiny fraction of that. It's nothing to do with that number, but it's a significantly higher price, let's say per pound or per kilogram, but it's not that much more per cup, which is so people really need to know how to push that concept, those economics down to the cup, and make sure that they're priced accordingly and that they're able to sell that through the chain. But if they can do that, then they can certainly learn to forest more of their land, and it's going to help a lot with the climate situation. Coffee can have a major impact. There are millions of hectares out there in coffee, so a lot of help that could be done. I think on some level we've done so much damage to planet Earth, and at the rate that the ice is melting. There's some irreversible aspects of what we're doing, but I think this current situation with the pandemic, for me included, it's not easy on any business right now. I mean, maybe a few, like Amazon's doing really well.
Yes, they do.
But what it's done is forced me to reinvent at least a part of myself or a current situation. And I think that's extremely healthy for all of us. I think there was just way too much thoughtless waste going on. And I think people are forced at this stage. It may only be 2 months, but I hope it's so far. But I hope that this has a lasting effect, and people really are forced to reinvent themselves and consider that that there may be an approach to business, particularly where we're not just considering the dollars, the currency as the bottom line. We need to be investing in different kinds of capital and different kinds of returns that create greater sustainability of all of this.
You and I must be on the same wavelength, because I prepared these questions only, 3-4 days ago, and literally my next question was like, could you tell us about the importance of innovation when it comes to processing bowls or the entire business operation behind a farm, which you just explained? And going back on climate change, Joseph, I mean, you're definitely so far winning the best backdrop and background out of all the 26 guests that have been on the show. Nothing wrong with their houses, but that beautiful hidden forest is just super, look, it gives me goosebumps. I mean, I got a jungle of concrete, which I'm grateful for. Cities are great for different reasons. There's pros and cons in everything in life, of course. But and I think that us talking about climate change with that background, we really need to understand that we gave for granted lots of things and lots of people prior to the pandemic. We gave for granted our kids or wife or husbands or friends or whatnot. And the same way that we have all connected and reconnected on Zoom or house parties or live streams on Instagram, I really hope that we connect back with nature as well. So 100%.
Everywhere.
Even when we're talking about exploring the waterfalls and this and that, I'm like, man, it's so precious yet so fragile, and we are, as individuals, consciously, the way we consume and we purchase play a relevant role to it. So thanks for what you just said. Yeah.
Of course, of course. And I think that improving in that capacity is accessible everywhere. And I think a lot of it comes through considering that we offer experience versus just whatever our product is. So whenever we design our warehouses, our parking lots, our roads, even and buildings, there's a way to integrate nature. There's a way to think about how people experience everything that they do, and to integrate nature in the plan a bit more. And it's really it's highly energizing, and it's highly inspiring. So and it really pays back. So I don't think that most of modern day society has appreciated that in the types of designs. You look at all the massive expansion of strip malls for decades that happened in the United States, and also all the warehousing districts that have no character whatsoever, and they're just expanding into space, and the agriculture that goes horizontally monocrop across plains, and really the business doesn't end up becoming that great because of this. That strategy is not necessarily returning experience nor capital in many cases. There's so much more to be gained from a diversified experience, a diversified landscape, and inside of that landscape, one can create products that sustain it all. And I think if we think a bit more in terms of what our connections are, what our impact is when we produce any product. Socially, what's our impact? What's our footprint ecologically? And try to have a positive impact on all fronts, at least net positive in how we impact things socially, ecologically, one way or another. It should be a net positive. If we think net positive, then everybody who's doing that will have a positive impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still incredible to date that out of 189 countries in the world, only Bhutan, and there's a little other tiny country that I skipped the name there, neutral carbon, what's the word? Anyway, they're neutral. And it's incredible, again, it's a small country, they're not as big as the United States or India or China, or Russia. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think a lot of things come down to individuals, 100%. And what we do on a day-to-day basis when we choose loose carrots versus carrots in a plastic bag, metal straws over plastic straws. I think people underestimate the value of small actions as well. And we can do a lot more for sure. But talking about lots and farm where you are you currently growing any new lots, or are you finding, or are you working on new exciting projects, or anything that you can share first?
Yeah, I mean, there are always improvements, but here we've settled out at about 50% of the land is planted with coffee. I'm actually looking more in Geisha states where to eliminate coffee in favor of more understory plants. So I want a greater percentage of not just, I love the forest canopy, it's amazing, but I want a really beautiful aesthetic and community integration of all the understory plants and animals. So all the things that the birds and the small animals and the larger animals depend on through their ecological supply chain. I want to make sure to increase that base of resource for the ecological community. And it's actually the most practical way to do that as a coffee producer is to look at within your coffee plantings, where's the coffee having the most difficult time? There's some inclinations that don't work right, some exposures that aren't perfect, but can be really great for native vegetation, and also kind of naturally mix your landscape up and make it much more visually interesting as well. So we're actually probably going to undergo some slight reductions over time in certain parts of the under the canopy where we have coffee. And then at this new project, Baru Estates, which is this amazing land that I fell in love with last year. I was brought there by my great friend Kai Johnson from Johnson Coffee, which is a nearby neighbor. I was sitting out on his lake behind his house one night, and he I'm really honored that he's been a great fan of the ecological work that we do and all the work that we do at 90 Plus. But he said, "Hey, man, there's this property that is a one of a kind thing in the world, and it's so close to us, and I had not seen it until last week. And there's this massive kind of 10,000 year plus old crater that's hidden in plain sight. That's only 30 minutes from here. That's at the base of Volcan Baru.
Wow.
And
I think I think you're freezing, which is, hang on. I think it's a little bit choppy. Hopefully it refreshes. I'm not sure if it's for you guys too, but I'm losing Joseph by the minute. It's I got a wheel spinning, but let's see if I can still hear you slightly, but there's a little hamster spinning wheel. Am I? Oh, it's working fine for you, Bianca. Okay, cool. What I'm gonna do, Joseph, if you can hear me, you are super choppy for me. I'm gonna close you off and re-bring you on. Hang on. All right. Sorry, guys. On my end, it was super choppy. I gave it a little bit about a minute. But Brew Theory, you had a set face too, so you're in Australia too. So I'm sure that you picked that up. But yeah, they don't even appear online now, which is a shame. But we'll send them an invite again. Let's have a look. That's okay. These things happen. With the pandemic and all, we had a few technical issues in the past few days with different locations, and that's okay. We again grateful for even having had this 51 minutes with him, and we were towards the tail end, but hopefully he join us back soon. What's been your favorite part of the interview so far? Feel free to drop a comment below. I see you all. Big shout out to Jessica, Bianca, Benjamin, Julio, Said, Benjamin again, Brew Theory, my man. Brew Theory is going to be on tomorrow. Anthony, that's his name. And then we go Kaya, Ken, Club. Hey Matt, what's good, Matt? All the way from Northern Ireland, representing Cafeismo. If you just tuned in, we just lost Joseph for a little bit. Unfortunately, his connection must have dropped, which is okay. This live will finish in 8 minutes, so hopefully we can catch him back. If not, we might start a new live. But that's all right. I'd love to hear more from you. If you want to drop a small comment and tell me so far what's been the most interesting part. We've been interviewing Joseph from 90 Plus Coffee. I think that I had goosebumps a couple of times when I was talking about the forest, the jungle, the nature. It just resonated so well. I come from the mountains back in Italy, so I miss the green, I miss the white, I miss the water, the lakes. As much as grateful we are to be in Melbourne, in the city of coffee, still I think there's an element of us connecting to nature that's we miss all in our lives, which is okay. We don't need to be hard on ourselves, of course, but it's been good. So far for me, that was the highlight. His passion, and I'm glad that I mentioned, because I read somewhere on a blog that people say that Joseph is the Elon Musk of coffee. I added that he's Elon Musk, also Indiana Jones. It just gives me this this really, I don't know why, this connection that I've gained from him. It's just yeah, he's the Indiana Jones and Elon Musk of the coffee world in a weird way. He's talking about finding jaguar tracks and big cats. And hey Dax, I see you in the house. You're always in the background. I see you. What's good, Dax? Hey fuckery. So yeah, look, it's been really enlightening. It's raining in Panama at Geisha Estate now, so I don't know if the rain has been impacting his connection. It was amazing for 50 minutes, so we're gonna hang out a bit here for another couple of minutes. Then I might start a new live stream. Hopefully he can join us there or here. Maybe he needs to update his app. We had an issue with who was it? Team Wendelbo had to update his Instagram app because he wasn't appearing in the live streams. That's okay. Again, Dex, if you just tuned in, it's been an amazing 45 minutes with Joseph. Highly recommend to watch it back, brother. It's just different level of obviously knowledge and experience, but I think for people, they have a certain idea of 90 plus has been the only the expensive and elite coffee, but it's much more than that, and the work and the passion behind it and the stories is just incredible. And nothing comes for free. That's something that my father always taught me. It's easy to point finger and say, oh well, it's the most expensive coffee in the world, but reality is that they are also they didn't get there overnight. It's a process of dozens of years. Here it is, Cafe Small. Thanks for your comment. That's really appreciated. Joseph is doing very important things for environment here in Panama. There you go. So I get such good vibes from Joseph throughout the entire live stream. Here it is. I was just giving him a compliment, but yeah, I just got amazing vibes. Everyone listening, look, because this, and hopefully you're there too, Joseph, with the 90 plus coffee handle. What I'm gonna do now that you're back, I'm actually gonna end this live stream. I know it's gonna sound weird, but I better end this because otherwise the stream will end by itself within 90 seconds, talking about 90. So I'd rather ending this without having the issue of restarting a new one and interrupting. So now that Joseph is back, hopefully you're on. Brew Theory, Bianca, 90 Plus Coffee, all of you guys, I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna restart it again so that we can actually have 10-15 minutes uninterrupted, because Instagram lives are capped at 60 minutes. So glad to see you back, Joseph, and I'm gonna end this and then we can bring you back on for uninterrupted 10-15 minutes. And thank you again, it's been incredible. So guys, I'll see you in a second.